Still the one that got more votes, still the one who can take a joke. There's room in Guantanamo Bay for a Trump hotel. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Lost Begotten channel, where we find out together what my hair looks like every day. Fortunately, we can't really see it. So, I guess we can just move on. It's there somewhere doing crazy things. But, yeah, I guess that's for the best, though. Just kind of a little mystical mass in the wilderness. What did I say about moving on? Yeah, moving on. So, after, what do they call it? Doing the Big Five or something like that. There's some little media terminology for this. Some wild, weird stuff. Hillary Clinton spent the day in the Channel colors, also known as the Mother Mary Blue. And how many interviews did she do yesterday? Like, does anybody know? Does she even know? I don't think she even knows. It's probably just like one big blur to her at this point. Shit, it would be to me, but, you know. Let's face it. She'd make a better president than I would. Anyways. And I'd make a pretty good president. Yeah. Better than Donald Trump. Or like, you know, I guess that didn't say much, because, I mean, let's see, the list of things that would make a better president than Donald Trump. A can of gasoline next to a volcano. A beached squid. I mean, random divergent things. I know. I'm just trying to really make you think, because think about it. A squid, dumb enough to miss the ocean. You know, it was swimming and it just fucking missed, went up on land. That would make a better president than Donald Trump. The other example. Think about it. Can of gas. Sitting next to a volcano. More of just the concept of it. That level of stupidity, you know, about the same expected longevity, really. Just a matter of time before one of them caterpillar shoes spits out of the volcano and Donald Trump bursts into flames. Far too pleasant of a thought. Whatever happened to spontaneous human combustion? You know, like, what? Hey, oh. Okay. If only it would work. So, howdy, Maximo. And coachisms. Is that, Polly? Taylor, I'm just going to start calling Taylor Polly from now on, because they got too many damn screen names. So, Polly. I've spoken. You are now Polly, for you are many. I know. Ain't I a stinker? It's like, it's me. So anyways, welcome one and all to the world's most suppressed broadcast, where a video that I did yesterday, 3 easy steps to growing coral by a budget reefer with 30 years experience. has received 14 views. That's special. I mean, that's just really special. If y'all would please find some reefing groups somewhere to share that link. I actually put thought into it. I made a graphic. Like, I don't know. Maybe I whine too much, but I'm disabled. I got kids. My wife, bit of a handful herself. Lots of stress. I am the house manager, She's the bill manager. I'm the house manager. And all the while I find time to, let's see, save the world, not bragging there, like, literally, there would not be any fucking investigation into Trump and Russia if it wasn't for me hammering away at, dude, at least 30 different people just at the Pentagon got emails from me. Okay? I would go down the list, alright? And I would compose fucking email after email. Not even copying and pasting shit, okay? Because I don't want to be, flagged as a spammer, okay? Believe me, my warnings got there, alright? My IQ is on federal record. Like, I'm a known smart person among intelligence circles. I'm sure they have my file, okay? And that's not even a boastful thing to say right there. Anybody with an IQ over 150, they get a file. And being a political activist and somewhat subversive during the Bush administration, I was, just anti-Bush. I really was. And, like, I was under the impression that he stole the fucking election and was somehow complicit in covering up what had happened on 9/11. But, bullshit election or not, there was some bigger things going on that I don't think even Bush understood at first. But unlike Bush, when Trump realized where his feet were and how deep the water was, he didn't take a step back. Okay, he just kept going on, and he's been neck deep in that shit for a long time. Okay. Bush, on the other hand, about late 2006, about June 2006, it all came together, thanks to, more than likely, some Democrats who had been collusive with communists, realizing that the real agenda that they were brainwashed to serve themselves was that of the horde. Not necessarily that they recognize that terminology, but I'm using the terminology that I've taught about and we refer to it here on this channel. Okay. But essentially, one of the things that was discussed in late 2006 was RT, the contradiction of truth by prevailing wisdom, okay, talking points that were just getting out of control, that were starting to make America look bad and kind of seem like a concerted effort to do so. And YouTube had just been launched a year and a half before, and had immediately taken quite an interesting tone in the shadows. And a lot of it tied back to Russia. And we had these agreements with them, and we had troop movements and bases in former Soviet territories, and they were acting like it was okay with them at first, and then we find out that they're telling the locals there that it's American imperialism. And I think Pelosi probably had, and this is a big maybe, okay, but she might have had, I think probably had, maybe up to an 84% likelihood, evidence that basically Russia was fucking around with us in Iraq. Okay, like they drew us into there. It was all kind of looking like a plot to draw us in. And they were supplying Assad with just the right kinds of things to not only start terrorizing his own people, but that would go right along the road through Anbar province to Fallujah, and then straight through Fallujah to Baghdad. That's the same road, connects the whole way, okay? You want to talk about an easy smuggle op. But it became the Baathists that had former financial and logistics ties to Russia that became not only Al-Qaeda in Iraq, but became fucking Islamic State. Okay? So, the Bush administration, let me put it this way. A statue of a Bush is not a statue of a Confederate general. Okay? You know, like they can say that the former presidents owned slaves, but they were loyal to the country. Okay? And they were loyal to the ideals of the country, for the most part. But they were flawed men. Obviously. We've had a lot of flawed men, and often it has taken, in the absence of Christ, flawed men to study themselves and their own flaws in order to help redeem the greater good of society. Keep trying to avoid lighting the next one, but failing. That's right. I keep looking over there. It's like, Ngh. So how's it going, Max? Today we have on the Lost Begotten's fake TV channel the Rachel Maddow interview with Hillary Clinton. So after a day of parading around, just nailing it. I mean, just telling it like it actually is. Unlike how the talking point puppet heads have been getting it, wrong. It's very interesting the way she's speaking, especially after Stephen Bannon's paranoid tirade the other day. Goebbels. I really almost said Goebbels, but they've been talking about him enough lately to where, oh yeah, Bannon. Okay, girls. Oh, but he's demoted. He's no longer girls. He's just Bannon now. Yep. It's gonna clear up soon, Max, but with all that drought and everything, focusing on my fish tanks has definitely helped me get some rain out there. It was cool how we happened to be paying attention to storms and saw like those Getzigatencho looking shapes in the clouds. Those funnel boundaries just look like Getzigatenchos that spiraled up and straight into Europe. It's so funny how it keeps like not just flooding, but like there's a lot of bad things been happening lately in places where the corrupt Roman families live, like those cardinals that I think in many ways have not only tied Francis down, but have hardened his heart somewhat. I really think they have. I think they've limited his exposure to facts, or controlled his exposure to facts. There seems to have been quite a change in him lately. But that does come with making the choice of rejecting me. So, I hope that's not the case. Anyways. So these guys, they live in places like Naples and Florence, and they have these countryside villas, and they own little hotels and tourist spots. Okay, and that's where they've been making a lot of their extra money lately. And a lot of them assist and launder for mafia rackets that sell drugs to, kidnap and ransom, and even just pickpocket tourists. So, that is why I have targeted earthquakes and floods in those specific areas in Italy. And there's been some collateral damage, but what you'll find peculiar about the pattern there is those are either places where these kinds of people live presently, or they were back when I was around, and well, I just assumed that their families never let go of their lands because they hadn't done so for 5,000 years. Anyways. So, yes, awesome Getzigatenchos. I want to get the, we don't need much of a big screen there, so I'm going to try to get the chat a little more visible as it goes red, because I was talking about the good stuff, but I was letting the real info out. And yes, I can be cheesy about actual fact. Okay, I'm done being OCD. Honest, really, honest engine. All right. Yeah, I'm glad it wasn't just left as claim and radar image. It's very nice of the Father to have blessed us both with some more signs. I must say, it's been a while since I felt enough unity to not be just a bit panicked. Okay? So I have been, I do focus on that third person avoidance of insanity. You know? That's not just a joke for videos. That's the way I've always been. That's the way I taught 2,000 years ago. That's the way I've lived ever since. Because, you know, I suffer from fatigue. I suffer from attention deficit disorder. I suffer from memory loss. I'm human. I'm an expression of that will. I'm a voice of that will. But it's so much greater than what can be contained by a human that limiting that presence to a human body, the very inconceivability of that is how God lets go of control. But that's from a linear perspective. And all of this is according to a greater plan. There is no escaping that. When I looked and I saw the Father walking towards me with my own limp, and realized that that was me in the future of futures, I realized in that moment there were some things that I was going to think that was going to be wrong. I was going to try that wouldn't work. But I knew I would do so for a reason, and that even if those reasons occurred to me, even if I was aware of the mistake I was making, I had to trust the instinct that had guided me. Even if I could see the lesson as it was being taught, as I was being a vessel of how it was being taught. Like, for instance, before the election, I tried to be optimistic. I had spent a good while saying, we're fucked, we're fucked, we're fucked, the election's going to be stolen, there's no chance in hell. But towards the end, you know, the polls were looking good, and I was like, everybody go out and vote, yay! I was trying to cheerlead, you know, I was trying to get people to vote, and I was pretending I had more views than I did or something, I don't know. But I knew, you know, like part of me knew. And anybody who's really walked in faith knows what it's like to get in this third perspective. You wind up having a quiet voice that it's not just the voice of Christ. It's the voice of that part of you that really wants to listen to the voice of Christ. It's that part of you that in your past lives has. It's your self in the future of futures. That's that part of you that I call your greater self. That's the part of you that walked with Christ. Or I am. Before you entered into this life. And thus you were reborn in the Spirit. And those who come here, reborn in the Spirit, are from that point elect. And Satan can only blind them and brainwash them. But when they finally are faced with the truth, they can always see what is right. And that is why this happens to my channel. Because the truth will set them free. And this is done by those who enslave you. So anyways, our best path to redemption and to truth and to revival is making Stephen Bannon Goebbels' nightmare come true. This election was not legitimate. It was for certainly not free and fair. And the Electoral College have no constitutional right to overthrow the popular vote. Now, hold on. I think somebody's having a nightmare or something. Sit. Alright, so, what was your nightmare about?
It was kind of like,
I was right, baby had a bad dream.
it's kind of like I was at school. When some raccoon made a hole in the wall, and a fox jumped on and almost ate me.
A fox jumped out of a hole in the wall and almost ate you?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's scary. You're so precious. It's kind of silly when you think about it though, huh?
Kinda.
Yeah. Alright, you gonna go back to bed? Love you.
Love you too.
It's too stinking cute. They were, she was playing outside, like, it was just a whole gaggle of kids in the neighborhood just playing. When they come back here between these trailers because it's the safe, secluded spot, right? They were out there. I don't know exactly what happened, but they probably were all horsing around and tumbled on each other, and she fell and broke her wrist. It's like a fracture, or a severe fracture. She's been all bandaged up. And while she was at the doctor's office, they're sitting there, like making sure they didn't miss anything on the x-ray, and like saying, does your shoulder hurt? Does your elbow hurt? And she looks at the doctor and goes, it's just my wrist. And like she had them so buttered up, like they were all just oohing and awing over her because she's just like asking all these really like scientific little questions. She's my kid, okay? I'll let her watch like Nova documentaries and how stuff's made. And she has loved Eric the Car Guy since she was like 6 years old. Okay, like seriously. The older one, who's actually worked on cars, she gets bored by it. But this one, she can pay more attention to Eric the Car Guy than I can. Like I'll sometimes get a little ADD listening to him, explain stuff if it's not something that I'm going to work on. But she'll sit there right up at the TVs, just into it. And I just sit there like, that's my girl. Anyways, I'm going to start letting her drink milk more and teaching her kung fu. Because, no, never again. I don't like being worried about her like that. Poor baby. She needs to learn how to fall properly. I just need to stretch my fucking bones and... Oh, God. I'm like so just fucking old and out of shape. It's not even funny. So like, teaching them is going to require me moving around and stuff. It's hard to be bothered with without adrenaline, It's like backflips. Like, I don't want to do a backflip. It's like, if I have to, I'll do a fucking backflip. But if I don't have to, I don't want to, like, have the pain that comes afterwards because I'm not in shape anymore. Like, I love the face that Rachel Maddow is making right now. She's excited. I was excited too. I mean, I was like, I don't know if I forgot or just like I didn't really appreciate it. When I come to think of it, I think I remember her saying Hillary Clinton's going to be on the show tomorrow night. But it just kind of, And then I saw the interview up there. Rachel Maddow one-on-one with Hillary Clinton. No. Of all the interviews, I mean, there were some on The View. Huh. The AC interview was pretty damn good too. I wonder if Anderson Cooper remembers me just because, like, everybody else in the whole crowd was shorter. I just, like, walked up to him, said, "Thank you for keeping the cameras where they need to be," and just walked away. But, like, definitely, like, made that mental connection. I think he's influenced, but not compromised. I think he's a really good guy. But speaking of influenced and not compromised, Rachel, there's no compromising somebody who really commits to being a journalist. And that's what those nightmarish years of the Bush presidency taught me. Because I opposed war, Walmart wasn't interested in hiring me, even though I had 7 years of grocery experience. Etc., etc. If it was corporate, I didn't get called. No matter how, like, obviously I could do the job, and frankly, they normally wind up hiring crap people. And for me to have trouble getting work was just kind of preposterous. Anyways, there's something going on that's beyond coincidence. And I just want to say to whoever's been listening quietly, thank you. And to the whole crew on The View, well, most of it, thank you very much. They had a little Sister Act reenactment. And it filled me with so much joy that when they were done, I got on my knees and touched my forehead to the floor in thanks to them. So, being a mother is, or at least once was, a sacred thing. Right up there with being a veteran in a war. Because, well, if you have grandchildren, if you've raised kids successfully enough to where they had kids, barring certain circumstances, you have basically been to war and back. And while a man goes to war and is honored for the lives he takes and the lives he saves, a woman is honored for bringing that man and those lives and all other lives into existence to begin with. It is a burden that no mother should ever be disrespected because of. To disrespect a mother is to disrespect a veteran. Someone who would disrespect a mother would disrespect a veteran. These things cannot be separate because God is real and spirituality governs everything. And because spirituality governs everything, the truth speaks for itself. So when you hear Hillary Clinton speak about things like, well, Bernie Sanders wasn't a Democrat, and you feel the power of those simple words, despite whether or not you agreed with them or disagreed with them beforehand, what you were feeling is the truth. And if you have disagreement with things that you hear that ring with that level of instinct, what you need to do is some more research and try to look at things from a different perspective. And that's what they call emptying your cup. So anyways, in the channel colors yesterday, saying a lot of things that you've heard on the channel, wasn't she? Rather gratifying. I think I will spend a lot more time just playing with my fish tanks. But for now, I haven't seen this yet. We're going to watch it together for the first time. Well, if you haven't seen this yet, I haven't seen this yet. It's my first time. I hope Hillary will be gentle. I know Rachel won't. I mean, wait, what? Now that's a mental picture that I didn't just have. Yeah. So anyways, without too much further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Rachel Maddow's interview with the people's president, Hillary Clinton. And the controller's off.
My guest this hour is the former Secretary of State, former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. You might have heard she has a new book out. It's called simply What Happened. Secretary Clinton, I usually start with a gigantic 17-minute monologue, but tonight we're just going right into this. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Rachel.
Let me start with something that just happened tonight. North Korea tonight just shot another missile over Japan. They've done this twice in 2.5 weeks now. You have said, since you've been talking about your book and since people have had the chance to talk to you about current affairs, you've said that President Trump is being played by Kim Jong-un, that Trump is somehow playing right into his hand. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean a couple things. One,
we know we can't get anything done in this very threatening situation if we don't work with our allies, South Korea and Japan, and also bring China in. The president has basically insulted and attacked South Korea. South Korea is literally, within miles of the border with North Korea. They would be so at risk if something were done by Kim Jong-un. Japan, which now has, as you said, 2 missiles flying over it, is going to have to be coaxed into a very intensive diplomatic effort, because the alternative for Japan is to say, we're going to defend ourselves. We're not going to sit by and let this happen. So what I've been advocating, which, it's not revolutionary, but it's what we need, is intensive diplomacy and upping our missile defense systems, both in South Korea and in Japan. Now, that will make China happy. They don't want us to put our THAAD system or other advanced missile defense into these 2 countries, but that should bring them to the table so that they are part of making it clear to Kim Jong-un that there are consequences. And the message has to be not hysterical, not delivered in a tweet, but very clear and convincing that if you attack our allies or you go after any territory, be it Guam or any part of the United States, we will have to retaliate, and we will do so with devastating consequences. We don't want to get there. That is not the preferred position. You don't start with that. You make it clear that's where, if he does offensive measures against us, we would end up. But here's my big concern. Diplomacy with North Korea is complicated. It requires people who know the language, the customs, the history.
Fuck's sake.
And that's what I mean when I you're an intercontinental.
Sorry, stupid ass controller.
Foreign service officers with decades of offensive measures against us, we would end up. But here's my big concern. Diplomacy with North Korea is complicated. It requires people who know the language, the customs, the history. We have decimated our State Department. Foreign service officers with decades of experience have either been ignored or in some cases pushed so hard that they have resigned. Right now, we need the best people we can possibly muster to have a full court press on diplomacy, and then we can see realistically where we are. But this missile test, and it's not clear yet from the early reports whether it's an intermediate range or an intercontinental ballistic missile, is sending a message from Kim Jong-un that he is not deterred. And that's what I mean about all the tough talk that we hear from our president, really actually
He's not the president,
playing right into
you are.
Kim Jong-un's hands. And that's what I mean when I say he's been played. And this is a clear and present danger, and if it's allowed to go forward, we will face even worse choices. That's why right now we need smart diplomatic intervention. If we don't have it in the government, then bring in some people from the outside with experience. We have experienced diplomats who have dealt with North Korea, but this needs to be happening right now. And get over the Twitter stuff and get on to the diplomatic negotiations.
You have described this week, you've said that it seems to you that Defense Secretary Jim Mattis may be effectively operating as both Defense Secretary and Secretary of State. You, of course, are one of the highest profile Secretaries of State we've ever had. Rex Tillerson is among the lowest, certainly the lowest in modern times. He has advocated a 30% cut to his own agency. He's left dozens of senior jobs unfilled, as you said today. He told State Department staff that his biggest goal for the State Department is efficiency, and that's why he wants to shrink the State Department so much. They've even stopped doing daily press briefings. Given the risk of nuclear war with North Korea, given the sorts of diplomatic challenges that we've got around the country and around the world, why do you think they are hollowing out the State Department?
Well, I think they came in with pre-existing conceptions about the State Department and about diplomacy.
that were not particularly well founded. It's not that you don't want to be more efficient. I actually had a process to try to make sure we became more efficient. But they came in with a bias against diplomats and diplomacy. Now, the good news, Rachel, is that the budget that Tillerson's been promoting has been rejected in the Senate Appropriations Committee on a bipartisan basis. The members of the Senate have said, look, we've traveled the world. We know what our diplomats do on the front lines, and we are not going to give you a 30% cut. And they basically came up with about the same amount of money. So the Congress is even recognizing that there is no strategy, there's no real plan. What I hear from inside the department, because I still have a lot of communication coming to me, is that there's a very small group of people around Tillerson, none of them experienced diplomats, that he has brought in to be his palace guard, so to speak. They don't even reach out into the State Department to talk to the people who have studied North Korea for years. So they're not getting the expertise and experience that is still at the State Department.
And I think they're disdainful of that expertise.
I think they're disdainful. I think they don't know what they don't know.
They work for Russia.
They had views that were superficial, and I think the perspective of Secretary Tillerson was as a chief executive officer, where you tell people what to do, you tell Kim Jong-un what to do, you tell people that, you have a different plan. That the world is a really complex place, and it's about a lot of things that people in the State Department have had experience with and at least should be brought to the table and listened to, which I don't think is happening.
Do you think that it was inherently a bad idea to take somebody who had been a lifer at Exxon, somebody who had only in his adult life ever worked at Exxon, the immediate past CEO of Exxon, to put him immediately in charge of diplomacy and the State Department? I mean, when you were Secretary of State in 2011, Rex Tillerson went to Vladimir Putin's house on the Black Sea to celebrate Exxon and Russia signing a $500 billion oil deal. That's probably the biggest oil deal in the history of oil.
Right.
Putin later awarded him the Russian Order of Friendship when another part of that deal closed. I mean, was he a strange choice for the job? Is being the CEO of Exxon inappropriate experience to bring to the job that he's trying to do now?
I think it's very limited experience. I think there have been in our past people with extensive business experience, CEO positions, other kinds of private sector work that I believe could have gotten into this position and had a better understanding of what's required in the 21st century. I don't know that he was a particularly bad choice from the very beginning. I mean, I didn't know anything about him other than what you just said, basically. But he's never reached out to anybody. He's never asked people. There used to be a tradition. Republican, Democratic administrations, you would come in and the prior secretaries of state would all get together and have a dinner and talk. And oftentimes you would be on the other end of a phone call, say, what did you deal with on this? Or can you tell me some more about that? I've talked to a few of the other secretaries of state that are still around, and nobody's heard anything, whether they were Republican or Democrat.
And you haven't had any communication
No,
with them?
none. I saw that. I met him at the inauguration lunch, and that was it. And then you've got somebody like Steve Bannon, who clearly is wielding influence from the outside, who, recently just spewed contempt about some excellent American public servants, including 2 prior Republican secretaries of state and 1 prior Republican national security advisor. So the attitude was so negative. And, why take a job that you're not willing to really dive into and learn about? And you come in with preconceptions, and you have a model that you're trying to put on top of an institution that has so much inherent strength, even though, does it have problems? Everything in government does. That's not a big surprise. But then not to want to learn. I kept waiting for the aha moment where you'd hear, the secretary actually called in people and said, hey, tell me what I don't know. Tell me what I need to know. let's listen. But from what I hear, that doesn't happen, and in fact, there's a concerted effort to prevent that from happening.
Attorney General Jeff Sessions,
Which
as
is
you know,
weird.
was less than forthcoming in his confirmation process with the Senate about his own contacts with the Russian ambassador during the campaign. And when that came to light, he recused himself. From any DOJ matters having to do with the campaign.
Right.
Tonight, the New York Times has reported that President Trump was so incensed about the Attorney General recusing himself from those matters and so angry about the appointment of Robert Mueller, the special counsel who's looking into Trump and Russia, that he berated the Attorney General and called him an idiot in front of a room full of people. He told the Attorney General that he should resign. Jeff Sessions, according to the New York Times, then submitted his resignation letter to the president, and the president would not accept it. Attorney General Jeff Sessions is said to have called this the most humiliating experience of his professional life. That's all been reported to me. Here's my question for you.
Wow.
Having been through your own particular version of the Trump ringer as his political opponent, do you have any advice for his staff?
Well, look, this is a man who engages in humiliation and domination as a tactic of control. And he acted it out on the national stage, first in the Republican primary and then continuing into the general election. And I think for a lot of people watching, the public and the press, it was hard to turn away from. You haven't seen somebody at that high a level aiming for a job that's the most important in the world who behaves like that, who says what he says, who delights in mocking people, attacking people. So I think that's pretty deeply embedded in his character. And I think going forward, any effort to try to contain him, which I know some in the White House and in the broader administration have been trying to do, is especially important when it comes to consequential decisions. You know, as you just read this recent reporting, I think the goal might well have been, psychologically, to really make Jeff Sessions, who's a very proud man, I served with him in the Senate, didn't agree with him on anything, but I did serve with him, to make him just be more dependent on pleasing the president. Whatever he could do, delivering that speech about DACA, only to have Trump a few days later say, hey, just kidding, we're going to do something that'll keep these young strivers in our country. It's all part of his manipulation. That is who he is. That's how he behaves. So I'm hoping that the people who have a mature view of the exercise of power, when it comes to something like North Korea, life or death, when it comes to something that would be incredibly stupid, given North Korea pulling out of the Iran deal so we have a second nuclear crisis to contend with, I'm hoping that on the really big issues, there's enough authority to be able to restrain and contain the president. That's what we all have to hope, because I think this president and some of the people around him pose a clear and present danger to our country. Domestically, to our institutions of democracy, our self-governance, our rule of law. Internationally, in so many ways, because of the unpredictability, then the fact that there is no strategic plan, there's just a reactive, emotional, visceral kind of behavior. So I can only hope, and I think every American who thinks about this can only hope, that, you know, people who know better, who have experience, and who realize that, you know, this country of ours is really worth defending and protecting, will be able to prevent anything really bad from happening. It's a horrible thing to have to say about anybody in that office.
On the question of the challenge that this presidency and this president proves for American norms, for the rule of law, I want to ask you about the lock her up thing.
Yeah.
Which started off as
sort of astonishing and then became this regular daily feature of the campaign. The president and his supporters, calling for your arrest, calling for you to be jailed. He has kept up his rallies as president, and that is still a regular thing that they chant when he mentions you derisively, as he always does. Do you take that literally? Do you worry that they might at some point try to gin up a prosecution against you?
Well, I know there's nothing there, so I don't take it substantively as much of a worry. But here's what I do believe. I believe that Trump admires authoritarians. He doesn't just like Putin, he wants to be like Putin. He wants to have that kind of power that is largely unaccountable, unchecked. And when I first heard that, especially at these rallies that, were inciting violence and insulting people and all the rest of it, I thought it was bizarre, kind of, really unbecoming somebody who's running for president. Then when they moved it into his convention and it was being done from the platform and people were chanting it and screaming it, I thought, wow, this is unlike anything I have ever read about or seen in presidential conventions. Every kind of political barrier that should have restrained this president and those urging him on was broken through. And so I don't personally worry. I have no doubt that if he got into serious political trouble, he'd try to gin something up, about me or President Obama. We are his two favorite targets. But I worry that it is indicative of the kind of self-image that he has, not only of himself, but of what the president should be able to do. And that's why it's really imperative that the Republicans in Congress rein that in. That's part of the reason I mentioned on the State Department, standing up to some of these very foolish plans that they have, why the press has to hold him more accountable than it did during the campaign, and why the people around him have to be our first line of defense against him doing something that could have serious repercussions.
Placing a lot of hope for the country in the wisdom of the people who surround him.
Well, we don't have much else to place it on right now. He is somebody who doesn't listen and pursues his own interests as he perceives them, and is very emotionally reactive. So on the small stuff, they may not be able to stop him. They may need to, hold their fire till something is serious enough to intervene.
We'll be back in just one moment with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Don't go anywhere. Seriously.
I thought I could make it back before the video ended. So yeah, I was expecting more about the book and the election and stuff. I'm guessing that's not the whole interview.
We're back with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. This week, 2 days ago, Vladimir Putin became the longest-serving Russian leader since Stalin. The closest that Putin has come to a threat to his grip on power was 2011, when parliamentary elections in Russia did not go his way. And his party apparently had to rig that election so that he could stay in power. And there were huge protests against Putin in the streets as a result. Secretary Clinton, I want to play you a little clip of This Is Your Life. This was you as Secretary of State at the time of those troublesome Russian elections.
Right. We do have serious concerns about the conduct of the elections. You know, the Russian people, like people everywhere, deserve the right to have their voices heard and their votes counted. The preliminary report by the OSCE cites election day attempts to stuff ballot boxes, manipulate voter lists, and other troubling practices. We commend those Russian citizens who participated constructively in the electoral process. And Russian voters deserve a full investigation of electoral fraud and manipulation.
That was you speaking on behalf of the U.S. government, top diplomat, taking Putin to task for that rigged election. And that apparently really made an impression on him. The intelligence community says that you're confronting him over that election where he came closest he's ever come to losing his grip on power. That may be sort of the origin story for why Putin has such a grudge against you. And it may have been his initial motivation for why he wanted to sabotage your election or potentially sabotage your presidency as best as he could. Do you agree? Do you agree with that assessment? Do you think the intelligence community is right to look at it that way?
Well, I have a high regard for the intelligence community. I've worked with them for the last, 15, 16 years in the Senate and then in, Secretary of State.
20 years.
I have no reason to doubt that that is their conclusion based on much more evidence than I am privy to right now. Here's my take.
Couldn't you hear the thought right before she answered? Couldn't you hear 20?
On it. I think, speaking on behalf of the United States government, at that time in 2011, really did infuriate him. Infuriated him about the United States, which has been his principal motivating reason to go after our
2011
country the way he has in this past election. The fact that I was delivering it, I think, put a personal edge on it. The fact that I'm a woman, something that, is hard for him to deal with, as I write in the book. So it was primarily about our country and where we stood as a nation. It was about me, and it was personal. And I think the intelligence community calling it a grudge maybe personalizes a little too much because it was broader than that. He wants to destabilize democracy. He wants to destabilize our democracy. He wants to destabilize Europe, the European Union, NATO. He wants to do everything he can to influence and intimidate the former Soviet Union nations along his border from the Baltics to Central Asia. So it's much bigger than just me, but I think he saw me as someone who would stand up to him and would, try to find a way to demonstrate unequivocally that we were going to fulfill our NATO responsibilities to those countries that have signed up, under whom we have, with whom we have a mutual defense treaty, and that we were going to continue to speak out for human rights and for democratic values. He just doesn't want to hear any of that. And one of the reasons he was so attracted to supporting Trump and trying to defeat me is because he knew that he could control Trump and he could manipulate the Trump administration going forward. At least that was his calculation.
The Christopher Steele dossier, which is a controversial document for lots of reasons. Quoting from that, though, a lot of it has been proven out. One of the things that document says is the Russian hope was that even if she won, meaning even if you won, Clinton in power would be bogged down in working for internal reconciliation in the United States, rather than being able to focus on foreign policy, which would damage Russia's interests. So part of their motivation was that they expected you to win, and they thought they would interfere in the election to lay the groundwork for trying to harm your presidency. Again, the U.S. intelligence community echoed that, came to the same conclusion, that Russia wanted to, yes, hurt your chances in the election, but also if you'd win, they thought they could undermine your ability to govern as president. Do you think the kind of tactics that were reasonably effective during the election against you, do you think they would have been effective against your presidency? Do you think they could have also been deployed in non-election year in an ongoing way? Do you think that the U.S. government could have combated those tactics if it wanted to, if you were running the government?
I absolutely do believe that. You know, I've thought about what if the so-called shoe was on the other foot. You know, suppose I had won a narrow victory in the Electoral College, lost the popular vote, going in during our hyper-partisan times as president. I can tell you, Rachel, that if the intelligence community had come to me in the Oval Office and laid out their evidence, much of which we know, but not all, I would have said, I want an independent commission immediately established with subpoena power. We're going to get to the bottom of this so that it never happens again. I would have stood up and stood against it. So yes, the government right now could be doing more. I mean, look at this administration, for heaven's sakes. I mean, transparency would be the best way of undermining Putin. We now know that they were sowing discord.
Really?
During the election with phony groups on Facebook. They were running anti-immigrant, anti-me, anti-Hillary Clinton demonstrations. They were, you know, putting out all this fake news, all these negative stories that were untrue to really divide people. So if your government were to say, you know what, we're going to get to the bottom of this, and we're not, look, we may have our disagreements among Americans, we're not going to let the Russians come in and divide us. And so we're going to make Facebook own up to everything. They're just begun to own up. They have a long way to go before they get to where they need to be, in my opinion. Other tech companies, we're going to go after these provocateurs, these Russians posing as Americans, these content farms in Macedonia, these 1,000 trolls, these tens of thousands of bots. Because you know what? We have every right to have a vigorous debate in America, but we don't want it being interfered with and suborned by Putin and his allies. So I think if we had done that, and we, you know, there would still be some, you know, some naysayers, but we would bring the country together around this. What's the Trump administration doing? They have a phony commission looking at voter suppression, which is not a problem. And what they are doing... Voter fraud, not a problem. So they want to suppress more votes, and they want to suppress those votes, particularly of African Americans and young people, because they don't think they'll vote for their kind of candidate. So this phony commission is trying to get all this voter data. We know they're in bed with big data companies like Cambridge Analytica and the like. But what are they going to do with that data? How are they going to use it? I am very concerned. A president who wanted to be a president of all of the country would be investigating what the Russians did to us, would be going as far as possible to find out not just what they did to influence voters, but what they did going into our voter rolls, going into the personal emails of election officials. I'm proud of Virginia for stopping to use the touch, the computer touch voting machines because they're so vulnerable to hacking. Everybody in every state should be asking themselves that, led by a committed federal government. That's not happening.
I know that you've spoken this week and you've written in the book about the prospect that the Russians, or as you put it in the book, that the Russians or their proxies they had an unusual deep knowledge and familiarity with our political scene and its players. The timing of the disclosure of the documents that they stole from the DNC, the specific nature of the material that they promoted against you, raises the strong possibility that the Russians had gotten help from someone with experience in American politics. Obviously, there is a serious federal investigation led by the special counsel into whether or not the Trump campaign was involved in the Russian attack. You've been clear that you think there are reasons to be worried that that was the case. If it's proven, if the Trump campaign did know this was happening, did cooperate with it, did maybe even participate in it, is that a criminal matter? Should people go to jail for that, or is that something that requires a political response or potentially something through the Congress like impeachment?
Well, it's too soon to know. Look, I think that laws may have been broken. Campaign finance laws, for example, the federal agent registration laws. I mean, there are specific laws that might well have been broken. And then, of course, obstruction of justice is a separate offense. But this will ultimately be decided, even if some people are charged with crimes, in the political arena. Because Americans have to decide, regardless of your party affiliation, do you want to condone the kind of behavior that we have been learning about, which puts a political campaign in the control of people who are either communicating with, maybe coordinating with our foreign adversary. You have a chance to stand up and say no in the 2018 midterm election, which ultimately will be the final decision. And if there are legitimate questions or charges to be made in the House on impeachment or anything else, it's too soon to say if that's even a possibility. But unless Americans are outraged, unless Americans of all political persuasions say, you know what, I want to win a fair fight, I'm going to stand up and argue for tax cuts for the top 1%, and I'm going to take my argument to the people, and somebody else says, I'm going to argue against it because it will just make inequality worse. That's what we should be arguing about. But you shouldn't be putting not just one thumb, but tens and hundreds of thumbs on the scale in favor of, Putin. So I think this will have legal ramifications, but also ultimately political ones.
Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, will you please stay one more moment?
Yes.
I'm back with former Secretary Clinton. We're talking about her book, What Happened, right after this.
Please be the right one.
Welcome back. My interview with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is now subject to a brief interruption because of this important video of a sneezing panda. All right, so mom panda's in the corner, baby panda chilling right in front of her, and then baby has to sneeze. Mom's and mom reacts. Here's a little loop just of the mom reacting to the sneeze. You have seen this before. I know you've seen this before because statistically speaking, we all have. It has been viewed over 200 million times. Madam Secretary, one of the things that you deal with in a surprisingly straightforward way in your new book is that people are obsessed with your human nature.
Yes.
Everything from the sort of deep thing that you point out, which is that people needed to be told again and again, why truly do you want to be president, when nobody ever asked Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz that question in exactly that same way. But also, the really human stuff. In the book you called it the panda principle, which is why we were visited there by the sneezing panda. This is what you write in the opening of chapter 5 in the book. What I ate, who did my hair and makeup, what my mornings were like. It may seem strange, but I get asked about these things constantly. Philippe Reintz, who played Trump in our debate prep sessions, has my favorite explanation why. He calls it the panda principle. Pandas just live their lives. They eat bamboo. They play with their kids. But for some reason, people love watching pandas, hoping for something, anything to happen. So you're sort of marveling at people having that interest in you, but then you also basically concede that you have now learned that that's what people want to know. And chapter 5 of the book is literally, here's what time I get up. Yes, I hit the snooze button. Here's what I eat for breakfast. Here's where I exercise. Yes, I love my husband. Here's some mystery novels I like. Yes, I like hot sauce. I mean, do you wish people didn't want to know you in that way? And do you understand why they do?
Well, I've stopped asking
both questions because I've concluded that it's just a part of our lives now. And I think I was slow to accept that, and I believe that I'm pretty straightforward and, pretty ordinary in most of my human existence. And so I think, though, that people were a little bit intrigued, maybe even obsessed, because of when I burst into the public awareness. Bill was the first baby boomer president. I was the first professional wife, first lady, and there was just this insatiable curiosity, and I have said many times before, I became like a national Rorschach test, right? You see what you want to see in you. But I wanted in this book, because it is true, people ask me these questions all the time, and I thought, well, you know what, I just want to embrace it and go ahead and tell you what I have for breakfast and all the rest of it, and maybe it will give people a little bit of satisfaction that they know me better than they thought they did. Do you feel like it's that sort of interest and that sort of no-win situation about your privacy is something that is inherent that any woman who runs for president is going to face? Is it an inherently gender dynamic going forward? Did you face it more than anybody else will because you were the one trying to break the glass ceiling twice?
I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think that just being a woman at that high level of politics is still so unusual, and people are sorting it out. I have some fascinating statistics in there about how there's a big difference between Democrats and Republicans in terms of wanting to see a woman be president. Lots of good research that I put into the book about how difficult it is, because as a man gets more professionally successful, he becomes more likable. As a woman gets more professionally successful, she becomes less likable. I really wanted to pull the curtain back and talk about this, because I hope through my experience and the fact that I am, trying to have this conversation with the American public, that people will begin to be more self-aware. Because also in that chapter I have on being a woman in politics, where I talk about endemic sexism and misogyny, I say, look, it's not just about me. There's that thing, I would have voted for another woman, but not this woman. Well, I ran for the Senate. I was elected twice. I know, how people can get to know you and respect you and support you. But because we've never had a woman president, the barrier is so high, that glass ceiling is so hard. And now that some of the potential 2020 candidates are starting to get public attention, they're getting hit from both the left and the right. And sometimes when it comes from the left, you're not sure whether it's a Russian pretending to be an American on the left or not. So I want to raise the visibility of these issues.
Right.
So that, if women run for president in 2020 or 2024, whenever it might happen, more Americans will say, hey, maybe I should actually listen to her and see what she has to say, rather than, say I don't like her hair, or why is she wearing that color. The kinds of things that get in the way of giving women candidates the sort of serious consideration that we deserve.
I hear your optimism about how that can get better.
I hope so.
By talking about it and naming it, you give people a way to at least discuss it and maybe combat it. I also feel like the sexism that you faced as a political barrier in 2016 was considerably worse than the sexism you faced as a barrier in 2008. And I know in 2016 you got further, but I feel like what I saw directed at you as a public figure was more vitriolic and frankly more rhetorically violent than what I saw 8 years earlier, which implies to me, maybe that's the general election versus the Democratic primary, but I like to think that things get better over time too, and I don't see that as having happened with you.
Well, but I think there were several different conditions that had to be dealt with for the first time. The internet was obviously up and going, but social media was not as unleashed in 2008 as it was in 2016. I ran against someone who demeaned women, degraded them, attacked them, and again, not just me, but Miss Universe contestants and Republican women who dared to run against him and interviewers who questioned him. It was so rhetorically vile what he said about so many women, and that kind of lifted the top off of what had been much more restraint, because I did feel like in '08 there was a lot of it. It was out there, but by the years that followed, I thought, okay, people are coming to grips with the fact that you don't talk about women like that. You may think it, but you don't talk about it anymore, and you have to at least try to give lip service to women being treated equally. Trump threw all that out the window.
You think he changed the weather? You think he changed what was possible in
I think he
American
gave
politics?
permission for people to be much more sexist and misogynistic, which is much more generalized hatred of women. So, and even for me, I was taken aback by some of what he would say and the fact that people would vote for him, including women, after the Hollywood Access tape. It just had a different feel to it. So, yeah, I think he was, in large measure, the determinative factor that made it so much worse in 2016.
Will you sit still for one more break? And I will come back, because I would like to ask you a James Comey question. I have a feeling you have something to say.
I might.
Okay, all right, we'll be right back with Hillary
Thank
Clinton.
God I don't gotta find another video.
We're back with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, because she wrote a book called What Happened? And among other things, that gives me a reason to get you here to talk. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
You have made no secret of your antipathy and frustration with former FBI Director James Comey for his actions last year, immediately before voting day. You spell it out in great detail in the book. We now have a post-election dynamic in which James Comey is the key witness in the part of the Russia investigation that has become a potential obstruction of justice case against the president for firing him. The president's lawyers have made this very interesting case in recent days that James Comey is an unreliable witness, and therefore there's no real obstruction of justice case against the president because you can't believe a word that James Comey says. Do you believe that James Comey is a reliable witness?
Yes, I do. And as I say in the book, you have to separate two things. What he did to me in the email investigation remains quite mysterious to me. What his motives were, why he came back at me again in October, which I do think was the proximate cause of my, vote loss and stopping my momentum. So I put in the book the very clear critique of how he behaved with respect to me in the election. Keep that apart from the Russia investigation. I mean, one of the mysteries about Comey is that he didn't tell anybody that there was an investigation going on of Trump, his associates, and the Russians, because he said it was too close to the election.
But he was happy to talk about it.
He was happy to talk about me, and a lot of people say, well, I thought you were going to win, and whatever. I have no understanding of why he did what he did. But on Russia, I think that he is credible, and that he has firsthand information because of those conversations with the president. So I certainly think that he is a reliable witness, and apparently has contemporaneous notes that really memorialize what was said and how he responded.
If you were president today, would he still be FBI director?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that, because once I wasn't president, I didn't think about it. I didn't analyze it at all. So I don't really know.
Last question for you. You have said that you are not running for office ever again.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want your public life to be like? Obviously, you have a career in public service behind you. You have a life as a public intellectual now, particularly with this book and the way that you tried to approach this. What do you want in terms of your public life from here on out?
Well, Rachel, I'm not going to leave politics, even though I'm not going to be a candidate. I've started a group which I write about called Onward Together, aimed at supporting a lot of the new young grassroots groups that have sprung up since the election. There's a really tremendous amount of energy out there, people who are recruiting candidates, training candidates, supporting them, who are teaching people about what to do at a town hall. I mean, all of the great work that we have seen since the election, my organization, Onward Together, will be supporting. We will also support candidates, and we will look for opportunities to try to not only support candidates in individual elections, but if there's groups that are fighting the suppression of voting, for example, we will come in and help them as well. So on the political agenda, I'm going to be very active on that. I'm working with Howard Dean. He's an old friend of mine, and he and I are having the best time interviewing these young people and getting all their ideas. And of course, Howard has a million of his own ideas to share. I'm also going to be doing a lot of not-for-profit work, primarily around women and children, kind of the causes of my adult life. And I'll be doing some work with some universities, trying to, spend time with young people, find out what's on their mind, and, speak out whenever I think appropriate. So I see a really active future ahead of me, and I'm excited about it.
Kind of sounds like it might include some talking on cable news every once in a while.
Well, it might. Hey, just saying. Just saying.
Hillary Clinton, the book is called What Happened? It's a pleasure to have you for this much time. I know you're doing a ton of interviews. I really appreciate you coming in tonight and spending this much time here.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks for what you're doing. Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back.
Wow, that would need some time to sink in if it wasn't just all exactly what I kind of hoped she said, except for, I don't know, like calling Trump the president. That's very responsible of her. That's why I say she'd make a better president than I would. Anyways. So, here's something interesting. I have this image. I've had it for a long time. And it's of Hillary Clinton as Neo blocking a bunch of bullets. The little Matrix picture with Neo in the sunglasses, and he puts up his hand and all the bullets stop. Alright. So I know that image exists. But, oh. Hillary Clinton Matrix bullets. I've searched for Hillary Clinton stopping bullets, Hillary Clinton Neo stopping bullets. It's just not there. And it's literally nothing but anti-Hillary shit tagged for that search result. Or just, random shit. But the only ones that are coming up with Hillary Clinton. There's plenty of stuff coming up with Hillary Clinton on it. And it's like these weird fucking Photoshop devil-looking pics and shit. Who the fuck are these people? Really? Sunglasses bullets. Do you remember that image? I apparently failed to transfer it over to this computer. But it's just like, it's like a meme. I mean, really, how can that not be anywhere? HRC Neo. Ah! HRC Neo bullets. See, it's this kind of image right here, but it's got Hillary Clinton's face. You know what I mean? But none of them are that. Got this random schmuck, but not Hillary Clinton. Oh, but there's Hillary and Anthony Weiner. Full AI sentence. Hillary as Neo. Stopping bullets. Got some shit that some asshole just drew some stuff on. That's not showing up. That's some scripted shit right there. Jesus Christ. How do you get your on mouse over to show up on Bing shit? That's all I'm saying. It's one thing when you go and view the image itself, but like, see, those aren't GIFs. Oh, they are. I guess that's just a 2-frame GIF. Okay, I figured it out. Jeez. I thought a GIF would take a second to fucking load. But no, it's just a GIF and that's the only purpose of it. Anyways. threw me off as opposed to like a host blocking showing up in there as opposed to when you actually view the image. Alright, so none of these are it. I might have to go get that motherfucker. Where's my phone? Where's my USB? Alright. Where's a cigarette? Because we're about to have yet another proof of the extent of Russian hacking and fuckery and basically internet dominance exclusively here on the Lost Forgotten channel. These exclusive reports, the main thing Americans are concerned with, I'm the only one who, like, provides them, originates them. And look how many people get to watch this broadcast. Boy, YouTube owes me some money, technically. But that's just the least of my concerns. I mean, what I would do with that money would also serve a lot of good. But, Speaking of which, should this broadcast be desuppressed, I wish to make a peace offering to Mr. Vladimirovich. And I'm just going to do this as soon as I complete my research in the particulars of how to implement it. Basically, the Black Sea has potential. Great potential. And basically the reason why it's not as impressive as it could be is because of temperature fluctuations. Just temperature fluctuations. Other than that, it suffers the same fate as the Gulf of Mexico. So, coming up on the Lost Forgotten channel, expect to see Vladimir Putin's dream come true without having to take it from anyone else. And I don't just mean a warm water port. I mean a coastal paradise. You know, no matter how clever the bully is, it really doesn't take very much to actually be a bully. But it really does take a lot to be a leader. A bully wants to destroy. He who bullies the world wants to destroy the world. But a leader wants to preserve life, heritage, tradition, rule of law. And a leader of the world should want to preserve the world. And thus they should lead others by submitting to the only hope for the world. And I'm going to teach exactly how this can be done. A coral reef. Right there within 20 minutes drive. Maybe, what was it, Kosovo? Not Kosovo. Was it Kosovo? Not Kosovo. What the fuck is the name of it? Kokomo, cocoa butter. The place where he built all the Olympic hotels and shit. If I could teach him how to terraform the aquascape. What's left of those hotels could be renovated and actually prove useful. Holy shit. An accomplishment that didn't involve fucking around with someone. I mean, when all you can accomplish is either intimidating people or moving money around. That's not leadership. It's a fucking embarrassment to humanity. When it all comes down to it, that's what it is. I'm enjoying this cigarette too much. Now I gotta get up. Huh? Alright, I'll get up. I'm gonna go get that image from the other room and I'll be right back. Alright. I are back. Good timing too. My cigarette just got all the way down to the filter. I'm not just a Capricorn, I'm the master Capricorn. But blame it on the back pain. Yeah, yeah. Anyway. Alright. So, let me just plug this thing in here again. Ha! Hi, Mom. So I call all my friends' moms Mom. Because you are the mom. Hi, Mom. Oh, look, there they are. Holy crap, I got them. Oh, they're so pretty. Huh. Seriously good looking fish right there. Yeah. So, one thing I know about me is that I enjoy implausible coincidences. I relish in them, in fact. I mean, it's almost a coincidence that I happen to notice this picture on the night where we get to watch the Rachel Maddow interviews, where by coincidence Hillary's kind of sounded like a lost begotten channel correspondent or something. And then I go and I look for this image. And it is nowhere to be found on the internet. Now, I did not make that image. I theoretically know how to. I don't really have experience with any of the photo editors that are that good. I really don't. Like, I don't even have experience with them. I'm friends with a guy named Billy, who I used to watch use, well, not only really sophisticated hacking tools, but movie editors and photo editors. Yeah, I got that on my server, man. Which, you know, technically, since I have a laptop now, the other computer is a server in it. How about that? And like any good server, it sits next to a shelf with a box full of deactivated hard drives with periodic archives of information. Occasionally I go and strap one of the old hard drives with new information. The ones that actually have space on them still. But actually I've been getting better about that, like leaving massive amounts of space on a hard drive and stopping use of it just because I have more shit. But yes, servers are good. I can't wait to actually budget out a real server. I'm really good at network security. Like, not on the usual level that most people get trained to operate on, but at the user level, where everything gets overlooked. Like, basically, how the Russians got in, I could have fucking prevented if I was teaching IT professors still. Yeah, still. But, you know, silly me for noticing something suspicious about 9/11, and then my fucking career was just over. Only to be later let in as a fucking general IT contractor. Doing wonderful things like entering Microsoft Office passwords on 50 computers. Oh yeah, real complicated shit. I'd blow the other techs away about how fucking well I could memorize a whole damn code just by reading it one time and then typing it in. That's my brain's ViewMaster formatting. Once I get in a certain mode, my brain works really well in that mode. Since I got my head stomped on, I kind of like need to use that type of blood flow pattern just to keep myself from having a headache when I change thought frames. So yes, I have I just made a decoy copy of it too, so. Just go and just paste it in a bunch of places and just rename it a bunch of shit that doesn't make any sense, so nobody can search for it, you know. Well, okay, so you don't focus on it as a blood flow pattern. I was speaking to a future audience member in that respect, but it's more of in your mind where your energy goes, which, you know, it's in your blood, so that makes sense. Anyway, so those clownfish right there seem to have been eating pretty well earlier today. Yeah, not filling a hard drive to the brim. That used to be a very difficult thing for me. But then again, I never really bought, like, the latest hard drive. I was, I'm always, like, I'd go to my wholesaler's website and be like, arranged by price, low to high, arranged by brand, Western Digital, purchase. The first thing there. The one that wasn't quite obsolete yet, it was never refurbished or anything. I would just go look for the smallest common size with the best buffering cache. And my wholesaler usually liked to buy that particular thing in bulk because he knew his guys liked it, back in the good old days. Katrina took them out. Once they shut down, I was no longer going to be doing that for a living. The independent work. Oh yes, Western Digital. I don't know how they've been doing lately, but back in my day, they top notch. I hear Seagates are good now. That did not used to be the case back in the day. So yeah, I'll just tell you what Get a Real Computer was. A Get a Real Computer PC was an Asus motherboard, a Western Digital hard drive, and a Sony disk drive. A name brand video card, either matched to the chipset or manufactured by Asus, so that it would work with the motherboard. I usually provided the option for a sound upgrade in addition to the motherboard audio, but that was mostly before motherboard audio got really good. I would actually price out all my systems. Before motherboard audio got halfway decent, I would price out all my systems with, like a Sound Blaster SB64 back in the day, Yeah, no. Seagate. uh, I probably replaced 400 Seagates with fucking Western Digitals in my first year as a tech, so, no. We would just have no problems with them, Like, if a Western Digital was going to go bad, you would hear it. Like, from the get-go. If a Western Digital sounded right, it was going to stay right. Yeah, Seagate is a great brand, like the brand name. And I hear recently they've been proven very reliable. I hear recently they've been proven very reliable. But I don't like to go by hearsay. If I was going to buy a hard drive, I'd buy Western Digital. Yeah, back fucking the late 90s, they were horrible. Seagates. That's why Packard Bell used it. Packard Bells and Compacts and fucking Seagate hard drives. And then Maxter came out. And that was, a real step up. I mean, they were a little bit better, but like, why don't people just use Western Digitals? I don't get it. Oh yeah, me too. I have like a 6.5 gig Western Digital sitting on the shelf. Like a 12 gig, a 20 gig. I got a 2.5 gig and a 5 gig Quantum Bigfoot. Maxter Quantum Bigfoot. Back in the day. I thought I was hot shit with my Bigfoot drive. Oh yeah. And again, later I heard the Bigfoots were pieces of shit. Mine still work. So. But yeah, see, get a real computer, you'd have two options. Media PC, Office PC. Media PC came with your standard version of Windows, Asus motherboard setup similar to what I described. The second to highest level video card RAM there is out there. No more than half of your RAM slots filled. I would usually try to leave just one. I would try to buy just one RAM chip for the RAM on every computer, and not skimp by buying two cheap sticks of RAM, or like manufacturers do with the fucking 4 RAM sticks filling up the whole goddamn thing. That's bullshit. Okay, so you'd buy a computer from me, and you'd have one RAM stick in there, and you'd have 3 open slots. All right. So if I gave you 128 megs of RAM, you could upgrade to 512 back in the day. Remember those days when that was badass? Wow, 128 megs of RAM. I remember when that was hot shit. I was like, in that time frame, right? Oh God, gigabytes. In that time frame was when I had those computers from the grocery store, and I had like, I don't even remember which RAM I had in there, but I had this motherboard that used 2 different types of RAM. It used SD RAM, and it still used the old SIM RAM. And I had at one point like 110 megs of RAM, and I'm like, yes, I've gotten over 100 megs of RAM. And then I got 120 megs of RAM, or like 119.899 or some shit like that. And then I finally got my single 128 meg chip from my friend Chris, the guy who had the pufferfish tank, right? I've talked about him before because, you know, it was at that time period, before that time period actually, in like 1997, 98, there was a fucking video game that basically had better computer graphics than what you see NASA shit put out, you know, like, anyway. But I was shitting in tall cotton. It was 100, and it was PC 100 too. My fucking motherboard couldn't even handle PC 100 yet. I upgraded my motherboard to handle my new RAM stick. I think that was when I got my fucking that's when I upgraded from my Quantum Bigfoot to my first, I think it was a 20 gig Western Digital. maybe it was an 8 gig, I don't know. It might have been a 16 gig, I don't fucking remember anymore. Oh yeah, oh man, PC 100, that was hot shit back in the day. Oh, do you remember fucking Voodoo 2s, man? Like combining multiple fucking Voodoo 2s? Like, you know, you'd like have guys like wanting 4 PCI slots just in case. And that's back when Voodoo was separate from NVIDIA. So it was GeForce versus Voodoo. So there'd be like, you know, the Voodoo guys, the 3D effects guys would be like, the Voodoo 2 guys would be like, why the fuck do I need a GeForce? All that RAM's just gonna heat up. I could have a big cooling fan across all my Voodoo 2s and it goes 3 times faster. See, look, the clock results on this website. But I could overclock it in the. I'm just like, GeForce 32 gig, $50. Don't need to overclock it. Then a year later, GeForce 64 gig, $50. Comes with software. You just slide a little thing, and that overclocks it. And people are still like, but my Voodoo 2, man, I got 3 of them together in it, and I got it water cooled. And then the Voodoo 3 came out. I went and got my ass a Voodoo 3. I got a Voodoo 3, and then I got that GeForce 32, and then I got the 64. Actually, no, the GeForce 32 crapped out on me because it was a cheap-ass generic card. Then I went back to the Voodoo 3. The one with the avatar-looking face on the front. You remember that? That purple bitch on there? Surprised I don't still have that box. I used to like keep video card boxes that were really pretty. Ugh. Yeah, I didn't have consoles. Like, shit, I never even got a console until I got my disability. And I got it because, like, people had given me DVDs and I didn't even have a DVD player that was reliable. Other than my PC, right? So basically, I wanted, like, you know, computer in the bedroom, TV in the living room, and the ability to actually play something on it. I just had, like, a little shitty 20-inch television or something like that. But I bought when I got my first big disability back paycheck, that's when I bought my 27-inch ViewSonic monitor. The TV, like, right when flat screens were starting to get cheap, this thing was still relatively expensive. I could have got something bigger, a little bit bigger, and a little bit cheaper, but I went with this ViewSonic because it had full set of AV inputs, 2 SVGA inputs, 2 HDMI inputs, had picture-in-picture, it had like screen pause where like you could pause the screen and like then get your camera out and take a picture if you wanted to on live TV. It's just a cool TV. It was just a great TV. And that, I believe, someone had given me a PlayStation 2. And then I think it was my wife actually who talked me into buying a PlayStation 3. Yeah. I think I started telling the story before I fully remembered it there. I think I just hooked my computer up to the TV, and then I had the PlayStation for Gran Turismo. Anyway. Yeah, graphics cards were really pricey back in the day. Like, you had to have a hookup to be able to find the cheap knockoff ones that still had, like, the good GPU printed on there. And yeah, America was definitely getting spoiled by its Asian suppliers. But anyways, is it already 2 o'clock in the fucking morning? Jeez. I'm really kind of flabbergasted that the 3 easy steps to growing fucking coral didn't do any better than 14 views in 24 hours. Like, okay, and the reason why is because there's a few videos that the other reefing channels have done, right, that talk about the 2-part solution and stuff like that. Like, go in there and edit the tags and add CChem fusion and stuff like that to the tags. But, the fact of the matter is, there's no video that makes it obvious, like, the 3 main things you need to do to keep your water stable as far as the chemistry goes. You gotta do something about the pH drops that your fresh water causes. You gotta sapping your sand. You gotta have chemistry supplements. And I've looked, and like, there isn't exactly a video that just, like, puts that together. Certainly not many of them. 14 fucking views. need to remind Kira, or if you can, I don't know if you're even in that group, that Bayou Reef Keeping on Facebook, that'd be a good place to share that video. But like, Max, if you want to learn, you can help plug the videos while you do. There's a lot of good forums, and then there's wet web media as well. Reef Central is definitely a good one. Bayou Reef Keeping, obviously. You can go on there and you can read discussions and stories and trials and tribulations. There's all kinds of cool stuff to read about on there, man. You can enjoy it. And of course, Bayou Reef Keeping on Facebook, you see people posting about all kinds of stuff every day. Often asking for advice and emergency help in many cases. So Gin and Rangiku seem to be doing pretty well, huh? We got Tatsuki and Yamachika for Gin and Rangiku. Bubbles and Zoom, Maya and Gaius. And I guess so. What, Spartacus and Nemo? No, that's gotta change. Bayou Reef Keeping, perfect place to reef vicariously. You can follow what other people are doing with their things. And like a lot of logic behind that being the best way to do it before you wind up, do that for as long as possible before you even decide what the hell you want to do with a reef tank. It's not as though it's like you just start a box and just start throwing shit in there. You want to plan out exactly what kind of reef tank you want to have. Like a particular habitat, plan it around a fish, plan it around a type of coral, plan it around a particular vision of an aquascape. But that's usually something that you have experience doing little things with first, But then, tell you what, I wind up giving a lot of advice through Kira on the Bayou Reef Keeping thing. And I'd be shocked if there wasn't just obvious places where people would need my help on some of those other sites. Sometimes there's experts that don't like to answer questions because they got their own particular hard-headed ways of doing things. Somebody just wants it cheap. Just wants to do something a certain way and wants to do it cheaply. They don't want to be told everything they're doing wrong. I don't know, it's interesting. The whole interactive process on those forums is really interesting. And then there's Peterson's breeding log from the lightning maroon thing. That's pretty interesting. But anyway. Where's that other fish? I guess I need to feed him again.
Hi, babies. Give me some food.
I find the best way to experience the forums is just search for stuff. You wind up, most of the good forums will search for, will come up as results for most of your searches involving saltwater reef specifics. And then you just kind of cruise around from there. But really, by reef keeping on Facebook and like the reefing Facebook groups, wish Facebook wasn't the only fucking thing anymore. I wish AOL would make a comeback. Wouldn't that be nice? AOL would make a comeback. And you had to be in a fucking NATO country just to access it. That would be sweet shit right there. Such a good looking pair of clownfish. Too bad there's no way to zoom in on that camera. Ooh, wait. That was top off there looking. I need to go switch my water jugs. I still haven't done my water change because people keep either using and then shutting off my water jug that I'm trying to fill up. And yeah. Now I have a full one back there. And this one's almost to where I can empty it. That. giant jug of water is here. Now I gotta start mixing up salt water. One little batch at a time. Little Nemo's. I mean, I can't name. Gotta find a better way for a better name than, you know, the cliche naming a fish Nemo just because it has a gift fin. What do you name an onyx percula? Without being racist for no reason. No matter how funny it sounds. Even if it can be done in song form. I mean, you know. Okay. So now that we are done the Hillary Clinton portion of the broadcast. Ooh, look, 2 viewers. We are going to mix up some salt water. And maybe, perhaps, do so while not knocking the little away. Just maybe. I mean, maybe not, but maybe. Okay. Success. Well, what I find interesting on the reefing forums is just seeing people that ask the question and then seeing the different opinions, right? But it's definitely not your typical online community where there's like a bunch of fucking trolls and haters and shit. Because the reefing community just doesn't have that problem. Because it's the reefing community. And you know, it's not like everybody just loves each other automatically. I'm sure there's like drama and gossip, but it doesn't occur as online trolling. It occurs as God intended, as people talking about each other behind each other's backs. usually in a way that makes the room laugh. Max, have you heard anything from Danny Burke lately? I'm like way beyond worried about him. And like, don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do. These air valves are there. Let's let the magna button. Oh, that's what it was. That company that does the analysis, ICP analysis. ICP-analysis. Apparently, the insane clown posse will test your salt water for you. Alright. And while I'm playing around over here, we'll do some iron. Ask, send Kira an email about it. Ask her. Maybe she can link you. Spartacus, what's the matter, baby? Oh, Nemo has discovered pellets. That makes me happy. Hold on. Shit. So I have some anomalous travelers in our saltwater here. Skim them out right quick. And I'll just throw that into that tank for no reason. That water looks good enough. Put that in the reservoir. And that's not going to reach. Come hither, mother. How was that? Alright, so first I'm going to see if I can get him to take some ick shield, which is my this is a $35 jar of food right here. Come on, little buddy. Oh, he's too precious. Alright, you don't like that stuff. You don't like to take his medicine. We're going to stick to this gross stuff that we know he likes. And this stuff, Can't get it off the thing? Come here, little buddy. Chowing down on the flake food. Morning, Polly. I don't know if you were here for the announcement earlier. Since you have so many screen names, we're just going to call you Polly from now on. He's tearing up them mysis flakes, huh? Look at him go. Well, I'll tell you what, there's like nano reef, man, well, look, Max, go to those forums. You can find your people there, okay? This is reefers. This is unlike any other community or group, you know, it's not car guys, it's not video game people, it's not easy. Okay? This is shit that actually requires work just to be able to enjoy it, no matter who you are. Like you don't have to pay somebody to maintain your Nintendo, you know? You might have to pay somebody to maintain your race car or something, but that's different, you know? In some ways that makes a lot more sense than what reefers do. Especially when it comes to hardcore coral addicts. Oh man, people will spend thousands just to have the perfect coral in their house. Just look at that display. I sit on my couch and that makes me happy. You know. They just want to be in control of something and be responsible for something. It's kind of like having a child in many ways. yeah, there's a lot of very beginner basic stuff. And then there's, like, of course, people who are just really hard-headed and just don't listen. I'm starting to think that mint chocolate chip Monte Poro is simply not getting enough current. Because it's like, doesn't look like it's getting too much light anymore. But I have my lights turned down to like 28% on the white side now. Start ramping it up soon. At this point, it doesn't seem to be recovering very quickly, and it's kind of in like this little dead zone in the middle of the tank. There you go. There's those guys. Disappeared off. Nemo, pick a spot. Alright. Don't break the laptop. Don't break the laptop. If there wasn't just scotch tape on here for no reason. Really? Usually throwing random objects goes very well for me. Aiming for inside of my hat on a shelf over there. Didn't think it was that going to be like difficult or anything. Alright. You're in good shape now. We have the water mixing. And the buckets of science. Bulls and Zoom laid eggs today. So that's Thursday. So next Thursday I'll need to harvest. Interesting. His little fin is healing up pretty well. How'd you get some pellets, little guy? Alright, little baby, if it's flakes you want, it's flakes you shall receive, okay? Come on, get some food. It's okay, come on. There you go, get that big old chunk. Good job. Oh, good job. You see him get that big old chunk? So this has Mysis diluviana, whatever the fuck that means. Fish meal, wheat flour, pea byproduct meal, soy protein concentrate, squid meal, grain distillers dried yeast, fish protein concentrate, dried algae meal, spirulina, and then vitamin supplements, folic acid, and all kinds of good stuff. So, won this on a Magna raffle. You like that, huh, little baby? You want some more? You just go ahead and stuff yourself. Come on. There you go. It's okay. There you go. You don't gotta be afraid of my hand. Come and get this big old piece off the rock right here. Come on before it loses its vitamins, silly. Right here. Right here. There you go. You want some help with that? There you go. Now, come on, get it. Oh, I see you've got standards now. Getting full. So he is doing pretty good right there. I think there's a Nano Reef forum. Just search Nano Reef forum. But reefcentral.com is the main one. Reef Builders is a good YouTube channel based forum. I'd really like to reach out to Reef Builders more. I wish I would have met that guy up at Magna. But a lot of the YouTuber guys kind of got drunk Friday night, and I was there Saturday morning, so didn't run into a whole lot of them. I got to hang out with Dan from Tidal Gardens for a minute. Talk to him. So that was pretty cool. If you want to see like just pretty looking corals, go to the Tidal Gardens YouTube channel. Truly amazing display tanks. Well, actually, really, no. Everybody's got truly amazing display tanks. Tidal Gardens has truly amazing inventory tanks. Like, just everywhere. All their shit is... They grow it in a greenhouse, Max. I'm surprised you haven't been there already. They have a greenhouse. It's been converted into a coral growing facility. They keep the parent colonies in these giant tubs. They get all the regular inventory in these beautiful stacked tanks. Just beautiful tanks. I hope to upgrade to some bigger systems like that one day. Alright. Holy shit. Feeding Tatsuki and Yumachika. Yeah, Tidal Gardens, man. Amazing. In fact, I bet you he wouldn't mind if I traveled up there one day and did a video. They're in Ohio. At least it's closer to my dad's house. Fucking driving from here to the end of Florida, or anywhere close to the end of Florida, something special. Visible. Really hoping that would work. I don't feel like retuning the webcam. She's looking pretty healthy now. Hey, baby. You gonna lay some eggs soon? Alright, well... doesn't look as though I'm going to have enough water until tomorrow. So, for now, I guess I'm going to call it a broadcast. Because I don't think we need to have any news added to the Hillary Clinton Maddow interview. That was quite lovely. Quite lovely. Anyway. You got anything planned, Max? Or you want to stare at clownfish for a while longer? Always go check out Tidal Gardens. Just see if I can at least turn the laptop around so I can sit the fuck down. All right. Hey, sis. Yes. Cigarettes. I may have some of those somewhere. There we go. Cigarettes. That's all. Right. Yeah, we still got another hour and 20 minutes. Or wait. I'm looking at the time on the thing instead of the time. It's 3:30, not 3. It's 3, not 3:30. How high are you? So, I need to think of whether or not it's worth it to get on eBay. Oh, looking forward to it. I need to make an eBay order because the idea of harvesting copepods alone kind of terrifies me. So basically I need to revitalize my rotifer culture and then set a proper alarm. Well, instead of selling candy canes and lollipops, I need to open up a coral shop. You know, what's interesting is that there's a lot of colder water species that are like underappreciated. And you can look up like cold water marine aquariums, and some people have actually managed to make really nice looking ones. I'm just thinking, wouldn't that be a nice way to get people in more common areas? You know, not everybody lives by a fucking tropical reef, but if only somebody would focus on that, collecting and propagating that, finding lighting that makes that look good, finding ways to set up those tanks to look good, and you know, it seems like there's a market there that could be created. And there's a lot of butterfly fish and other really pretty fish, like clownfish you won't really so much find, but there's a lot of Caribbean species that do very well in cold water and often migrate as far north as Newfoundland, you know, off the coast of Long Island. Like you'll find schools of butterfly fish off the coast of Long Island, New York, you know. But and then there's the option of and really, like, I'm surprised European governments haven't gotten more into this as a way to make preservation a for-profit industry. Okay, to make it sort of like a public-private type thing. Okay, so as a local fish store that specialize in indigenous or indigenously survivable species, right? You'd have to, of course, work out some sort of regulatory framework that prevented release of any type of species, or maybe screen the species for possible intrusiveness, okay? Because you don't want to have like a scenario in which you import something that does damage. But there's a lot of things that there's no conceivable way that they could do damage. And in fact, you know, butterfly fish and surgeonfish, if you can get them adapted to coastal waters and they happen to get out, what are they going to do? Clear up your parasites and your algae. Oh no. But anyways, so if you set up sort of an educational type store like I'm planning here, okay, like say if I get my investment and what I've designed is basically a store in a box that anybody can set up their own theme to, and it's designed to work educationally because everywhere there's tide pools and there's like a little mini tide pool display. It would be a great opportunity to focus on beautiful macroalgae. Okay. And that's a matter of testing what types of macroalgae can survive in, you know, 54-degree water or whatever. You make a nice planet aquarium. If you can get a planet aquarium to work, you can get the rest of it to work. And then you can cultivate those plants and you know, cut them out, make cutlings, and frag them out, basically, as they say in the reefing hobby. Or just wait till they root and spawn off themselves, depending on the plan. Like codium. You don't have to wait for codium to frag. You don't have to frag codium off. You will just wind up with codium bits all over everywhere. And as far as I'm observing, codium does pretty well in low light and low temperatures. Well, no, you can have fish and coral and everything. It's just got plants in it. Most people avoid plants because they grow over corals. So you use soft corals and corals that can move around the plants, and you don't let the plants overgrow. That's all. But like, as opposed to using the plants for mostly filtration purposes, actually making a display of it, making like a little aquascape with the plants. That's something you see in the freshwater hobby a whole lot, but not so much in the saltwater hobby. I'm definitely planning on doing that with my store. Well, that would definitely be I mean, you combine production and a retail, and you're just you're combining costs to produce more. That's kind of like how I'm doing my store, and I'm definitely intending on doing edible seaweeds as far as I can grow in warm water, and if I need to do some cold water tanks if I could do it without chillers, that'd be a good option. So I'm not trying to invest in chillers. Anyways, I need to get some rest, so I'm gonna call it a broadcast. Thanks for hanging out, and is it just me, or did Hillary seem like there was almost hints of maybe she could still wind up president without running again? I don't know. Maybe just wishful thinking. Right, and you can grow things a lot cleaner and in many ways more nutritiously in a captive grow out facility. And you can also you can technically use that clean grow out to filter your water for your reef tanks. So, all right, brother, take it easy, and whoever else is watching this, thanks for watching. Please click the like button and check your subscription. Make sure you're a subscriber. Check the dingy bell. Make sure it's gonna ding 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 for you. It might actually. Might. Good night, everybody.
Takes my pain back to breathe out of another thing. I know it's in my heart, and baby, down in my